Ooh, good morning, New Hell City special episode. Welcome to the special episode. That's a special episode theme. We're here to talk about the very, very Helly Award winning, the sexual, the incredible, the amazing RP CV12. I'll post a link in the chat for everyone here. And yeah, we're just going to go through all the events. We actually have, if you go back on the YouTube channel, we have the other what do you call them, episodes for the other CVs. We have 1 through 11, and we're going to do 12 today. So we're going to try to go through this as fast as possible. This is a year-long RP, and it got a little crunk, and a lot of things happened. So first of all, I should explain, for those who don't know what the CVs are, the CVs are it's a role play based on the cryptids from the obituaries. If you've not seen, we have cryptids every year. They keep running through this goddamn city, and we can't get rid of them. So yeah, I decided to make an origin story about it, and what was meant to be only lasting from 2020 ended up lasting all the way until 2022. Because Fire Demon's really bad at scheduling and keeping things on track. So it ended up being a really long one, and eventually we got to the point where we had gotten to 2022 and we hadn't finished CV12. So I was like, I'm just going to let CV12 be a full year. We ended up winning Best RP Story in 2021 for Circles, which if you haven't read Circles, I will post that link in the chat because I mean... And I was like, okay, well, I have to do something to really top the entire CVs, and I love to top, let me tell you. And eventually, I thought it would be interesting to have a story for every cryptid. So the Cryptidverse, each of the original ones, like CV1, CV2, CV3, 4 through 11. We're focusing on the origin of one cryptid, where it came from and everything. And so for CV12, I was like, okay, well, what happened to the cryptids after they were born, after they did the thing, and how do we wrap up their stories in a way that can culminate in a big ol' ending in the end? And I thought, okay, well, let's just we'll do a separate story, a mini story. And then that way, and this is where I got a little sneaky, that way we could have everyone join. So you didn't have to be in the original Cryptidverse RPs to get this one. Oh, by the way, I see new folks in chat. Hi, new folks. This is gonna make no sense to you, by the way, because this is like years in the making. But if you have any questions, let me know. So it was broken up into 12 stories. And I'll start with the very first story, which is called Freak Like Me, which is, yes, based on a very old song, which you all are too young to know. But first, oh my God, I forgot about the intro first. So CV12 is actually a continuation of CV9. So if you don't know about CV9, it was about a bunch of people who were put into sort of this virtual reality machine, and they one by one had to essentially kill each other until we finally got to the last survivor, which was Red Like Roses, who we then find out is called Alex Rose, played by the Helly Award nominated Princess Zoe. She's also nominated for this role this year, so vote for Princess Zoe for Best RP Character. And so we take it back to the end of CV9, where it's revealed that, oh, by the way, spoilers for all the way, spoilers for everything. We take it to the end of CV9, where Alex is she is taken through what we soon come to find out is the I can't say it yet, but she's coming. She's finds that she's the winner of circles, and she's taken through this really strange bureau. It's sort of like an FBI kind of thing, but all of the members of the bureau are like angelic and all in white, and she can't figure out if like these are aliens or what's going on. And they basically tell her that she has been selected because she won circles to take on Gabriel. And Gabriel, if for those who've been following the CVs, has been a through line throughout all the CVs because he showed up pretty much in every single RP as sort of this mysterious villain in the background. So Alex is basically like, oh shit, I now have to take on the Gabriel, I guess, who's been rounding up all this shit. So we get to the end of CV9, and the handler takes her to a place where she can change her clothes. And suddenly an alarm goes off, and Alex starts to hear a lot of commotion, a lot of destruction, and she starts to hear nails, like large nails, drag across the outside of the where she is. And then someone says, "He is here," which is the title of the RP. So then we start with file one. So Alex Alex is transported to this area behind the changing room where she is, and she finds these files, these manila folders that tell of each of this cryptid story and where they are at this point in their lives. And the first one is file one, which is called "Freak Like Me." I'm gonna give the chat a link in case they ever want to follow along. Yeah, so the first one is called "Freak Like Me," which I thought would be a fun little like way to start the the series because I was like, oh, okay, this will be like a fun, it's a club scene. I put in J Lo's "Booty," which is like one of my favorite songs. I love that song. I put in a fun remix, just for the kids, So at the start of the this section of the RP, we meet this very very rude, very gross lawyer who is yelling at waiters, grabbing at women. He's just gross. He's a gross man. He misgenders someone. Not good. It's just not good. And he's dancing and he's very high on cocaine. He asks the bartender for a white girl special, which is my favorite. And he comes back and he brings drinks back to his coworkers. Adaya, played by Maddie, and then Marky, played by Jesse, or DBS. And then Shion, played by Swift. Swift's in there. And isn't there someone else in this? Maybe it's just those four, yeah. So they end up getting drinks, and obviously oh yeah, so I had everyone roll, and basically they had various like backstories that they could do. And I forgot what each person got, but basically we had Daya, who is 24. This is played by Maddie. Has been working at the firm for a year, got a major promotion, and a good boy getting his first taste of working at the big city, struggling with a breakup from someone from back home, someone who says no before saying yes, but tonight he's going to change all of that. And then we had Marky O'Connell, which is 28. He is pointing to, he's worked at the firm for 3 years and is gunning for that promotion that Daya got. He needs the money for something very serious that the others wouldn't understand. Super good friends with this drug addict of a leader firm partner, despite how shallow the friendship may appear. Doesn't know much about Daya except that they do not deserve that promotion. So I already put them at odds, which is great. And then we have Shion, who's a very odd person out at the firm, and everyone makes a big deal of it, and has just started working at the firm, and it's clear it is not what he wants to do, but affords the lifestyle that he wishes to have. So the four of them sort of cut up and have to deal with Gavin McCook, who is the cocaine laden leader at the firm, and they're all chatting, and they get very obviously he's annoying, and he's jocular and gross, and that sort of like typical lawyer 1980s type. And eventually, everyone. Oh yeah, so this is the fun part. So Gavin goes to the bathroom at some point, and he can't find the bathroom because he's high as hell, and he opens a door to a what looks like a meeting of like some kind of it's like some kind of like AA meeting or something, and they're all saying like "All hail someone," and he goes in, he goes "All hail who?" and and they're like friend something, and he closes the door. He's like whatever, and we get to that later. So then they all end up going and getting drinks, and I had everyone roll for what drink that they got. And what they didn't know, what the players did not know, but that I knew, was that each of these drinks would give them a buff or a limitation of some kind. So I had I had the menu be Satan's breath, Beezle piss, angel guts, 6-6 soda, the exorcism of your sanity, or death incarnate. And I can't remember who got what. Di got a 6-6 soda. Let me see. Shion got Angel's Guts, and I forgot who. And I forgot what Jesse's character got, but they all get their drinks. And eventually Gavin like tries to get them on the dance floor. I had some good tunes for this one. I'm hoping to make a CV playlist because I had some good tunes for this one. I had like Medusa, and anyway, it was fun. Check it out. So they all start dancing together, and eventually, Gavin starts eyeing VIP, and he's like, "Let's go up to VIP. Let's hang out. Let's do some stuff." And they have a little trouble getting into VIP, I believe. And but I think after they do, it's very clear it's sort of like an eyes wide shut situation, and people are sort of in these weird masks, and it's a little uncomfy over there. But eventually, after they get into VIP, they realize. Here, let me see. Make sure I have this right. Oh yeah. The forming with the VIP, bouncer leads them up to a veiled covering. The bouncers over the covering and let the four inside. So they get into this VIP booth, and there's these three figures who are sort of veiled. Can't really tell what they look like, and it's kind of clear they're somewhat feminine. There's some sort of like feminine creatures, and they're like, Gavin's trying to hit on them, and they're like not responding, and he's like thinking this is going to be some sort of like freaky deaky situation, like maybe you and the ladies can we can all like dot dot dot. So eventually, the three ladies lead them into another area, and there's a basement area, and it says the music changes and the lights are all different. I turned it to this one song that's actually from this very unknown Antonio Banderas and Rebecca Romaine movie, and it's really good. Anyway, but so they look at the as if they're in some sort of jail corridor. It feels wet and dank, and there are rooms on either side of the hallway as well as monitors above each room. There's a video of a person trying to put a sword down his throat. He looks terrified. There's another video of a man laying down underneath plexiglass with holes on it. Women sit all over these various holes, and it becomes clear that what his aim is that one of the women begins to defecate. So it's sort of like a kink underground area, and the guy's like eating her feces. It gets very wild, and then there's a video of a woman like slicing her skin. A video of a woman apron slicing her skin and placing on a dinner tray for another man, which is foreshadowing for something way later. And then eventually the people are like, "This is the guys are like, this is weird. I want to leave. This is wild." And Gavin's like, no, 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 it's cool. They're all just partying. It's all just make believe. It's good. It's all good. It's all good. And eventually, one of the ladies reveals herself and grabs Gavin's neck and bites into it. And when they unveil themselves, they're these fragile, ghastly, and winged creatures, which, as for those, hawk-eyed CV listeners, we know them to be the harpies. So the harpies have made their way into this club, and I guess they have now figured out a way to lure people down so they could eat them and get into their bloodstream. And eventually, the guys all realize that this is like we got to book it. And thankfully, some people have buffs because of their drinks that they ordered, and some people do not. So Marky, played by Jesse, has a +5 to I think just about everything because he has an adrenaline. His drink gave him adrenaline, and they all basically leave Gavin as he's like bleeding out and stuff like that. And then what happened after that? Oh yeah, so everyone tries to get out of there. Dia basically runs, ditches everybody in true Maddie fashion. Maddie's learned in her time being in their time being in the CVs. And let's see, we have Shion, who oh yeah, like Shion, everyone's trying to run to the elevator. So they took an elevator down, and they're trying to run to get back through said elevator. And they keep tripping. It's very horror movie fashion. I can't believe I'm trying to remember what happens first. I think one of the harpies gets killed finally, and yeah, so hissing at Dia. Dia starts running, and then Shion loses grip for a moment. Marky's grabbing his hand. Dia's grabbing. Yeah. So they keep running. They keep running. Everyone's still alive. Everything's all good. I'm trying to think because people die. Yes. Oh yeah, that's right. So Shion is holding on to Mark. I guess they had a relationship, which is funny because the real players do have a relationship. And oh, that's the first one. So yeah, so one of the harpies tackles both Shion and Dia, and one of them bites Dia in the back and begins feasting on him. And then after that, so I think Dia dies first. Die. And then this is the sad one, is that Shion and Marky start booking it to the elevator. And Shion is not looking good. And they're trying to run as fast as they can. And let's see. Oh yeah, so yeah, one of the harpies like grabs, I think, through the elevator. I think that maybe they get into the elevator or something. And Marky and Shion get to the door, closed on the woman, leaving a small gap as she's trying to get through or at least get unstuck. And then yeah, so Shion gets in there, and then Swift rolls a 1, which is so sad. And the one of the harpies grabs Shion by the arm, pulls him through the elevator doors as Marky shuts the door on Shion, killing him, which is so sad. I can't believe that happened. Oh, anyway, so that is what happened. Shion and Dia end up dying. Marky gets up to the elevator. He gets back to the club. He's like rushing through, and and like the bouncers try to follow him, like trying to, because I think they're in on it essentially. So they're trying to make sure that he gets back there so she can feast. Also, like, we don't want those problems. We don't want him to come back and talk shit about the club. So eventually, in the big reveal, is that back at the club after Marky is completely run, he's running to the nearest police station. Back at the club, Gavin's eyes open up and he stands up. He takes off his jacket, rips off a blood pack from his neck, and he says, "So you got 2 out of 3. Do I still get paid in full?" So it's clear that Gavin has been leading people into this club to basically procure meat for the harpies. but one of the harpies is dead. I don't know which one though. I should have figured out which one because it comes from CV10. So, I mean, it's one of the sisters. So that's the first story. Player death counts 2 out of 3. And DBS, I think, survived his first. That was his first CV survival, which is amazing. So the second, so we come back to Alex, who is like, she's so confused, she doesn't understand what she's looking at, and before she grabs the second file, she finds herself in a house. This is very much inspired by PT, and she goes through the house. She's like walking through. If anyone's played PT, like walking through the house, Resident Evil type shit. So she's going around this sort of decrepit house. There's moldy eggs on the stove, and she eventually goes to a piece of paper on the counter that's held down by a knife. And as she goes to it, a radio turns on, and I play the radio. I don't know if I play the radio here, will you be able to hear it? Let me see.
As the recession continues to plague families across America, we regret to report the murder of 5 children. Police reported finding the father of the children shot and killed on the driveway. 2 children were found drowned near a nearby pool. The father purchased a handgun used in the crime at his local gun store 2 days earlier. This brutal killing took place while the family was gathered at home on a Sunday afternoon.
I don't know if you can hear
the mother
that.
is nowhere to be found. Several days before the murders, neighbors say they heard the father repeating a sequence of numbers in a loud voice. They said it was like he was chanting some strange spell. There was another family shot to death in the same state last month, and in December last year, a man used a rifle and a meat cleaver to murder his entire family. In each case, the perpetrators were fathers. State police say the string of domestic homicides appear unrelated.
That's fair, hang on.
To larger trends such as employment, childcare, and other social issues facing the average family today.
I will post the link in the chat, but it is I basically just read something from whatchamacallit, from PT. Shout out to PT. RIP to PT. And so Alex turns around. She's very slowly. She's very nervous about what's happening as she turns around. She sees a little girl, about 8, bloated and dripping wet, gripping a wet teddy bear, hanging by her neck from the ceiling, which is an homage to CV2, which is the Fergusons. Melita, played by Kitten, who is very upset that her character died. But anyway, so the second CV is, or the second story is All Hail, which I will post the link in chat. I know Maddie's going to come in here at some point. So let me get to All Hail. Yes. So the conceit of All Hail was that it was actually the room that Gavin went into in the first story, and he basically was coming in on this meeting. So in each CV, I tried to allude to the next story or have some sort of cameo for the next story, so it all linked together. So this one is a young 8-year-old girl gets up on a white lawn chair with her styrofoam plate of cookies and brownies. She looks around at the fellow meeting. She recognizes some and some she doesn't. She wears an oversized shirt that says, "Will you be my friendo?" And it's so big on her you can't even tell what the words are. She's in a cold basement, which looks like a room at the bottom of a church. Around her, sitting in a circle, are her fellow worshippers. So it is a cult meeting for Friendo. If you all know Friendo, he's from CV2, the Fergusons. I will post CV2 here. And if you, the Fergusons is considered probably the most shocking CV. The ending, I think, for the Fergusons is probably the biggest twist, maybe, in all of the CVs. I don't know. It's been called one of the most shocking anyway. But anyway, so Timothy Peter Carmine, this is played by Swift, who is he's the leader of this cult, and basically this girl is named Millicent, which is a homage to the character that died in the Fergusons. So you have this 8-year-old girl who's in this cult, and oh yeah, I forgot. Fucking Shadow's in this too. I love that. Shadow played. What was Shadow's character's name? I don't really know actually. Anyway, so basically, it's this cult meeting. Jesse's also in it. Jesse plays another person in this one as well, which is funny because his character from the first one comes back in a second. So everyone sort of bands together to talk about Friendo and how much Friendo means to them. But Timothy basically is deciding that this is going to be the day that they meet Friendo. They've sort of been meeting all the way to talk about it all the time, and Timothy really wants them to come through and meet Friendo. And the best way to meet Friendo is to find a dark lake. So Timothy is meets some resistance because an 8-year-old girl is coming, and they're sort of like, "Why are we? What are we going to bring with this little girl over here for?" And eventually, they get to said lake. I think this is the next big thing that happens. Yes. So Timothy basically reveals later on that what they're going to do is essentially a suicide pact, and there's a lot of hubbub about like she's a kid, like we can't ask an 8-year-old to commit suicide, and Timothy's like no 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 no, like she's going to be with Friendo, it's okay, it's fine, and and so they all go to this lake, and eventually, and Millie's like very very the young girl is very very intent on meeting Friendo, much to the like holding back of the other members. I think it's really I forgot who else was like not on board with this. I think it was everybody else essentially. This is a small cast, and so they all go, and they as they drive there, I believe I think Jesse's character Ruth, or maybe it's Joseph, is planning on figuring out how to like dismantle this idea. And they finally get to the lake, and they all pray together, or I think Millie at least prays, and they make it out to the lake shore. Millie gets to the lake shore and starts kneeling out and praying and calling out for Friendo. Very creepy shit. And I'm trying to think what the big thing that happens next. Let me see. Joseph managed to swim. Oh yeah, so they start to swim out. That's what it is. They start to swim out into the lake. And Millie steps into the water. I'm not sure if Millie can swim. And let me see. Yeah, so as Millie gets into the water, shadows start to come up beneath the water. And Joseph attempts to see what Millie's seeing, and Millie's like, "I'm Friendo, I'm here, Friendo, take me, please." And I think Millie gets pulled into the water. Let me see, Timothy. How is it, Millie? Does something trouble you? Yeah, Millie starts to get very scared because she starts to see the whatever's in the water circling around her. And Timothy's like, "It's fine, it's Friendo, it's all good, it's all good." And Millie starts to come back to shore. And as Millie starts to realize she doesn't want to do this anymore, Timothy gets a little bit upset, and he tries to yank her back into the lake. And Joseph, played by Shadow, tries to go to Millie and get her out of the lake. Millie, of course, is being pulled back and forth. She's very upset, and Timothy basically is like trying to force Millie to die. He's trying to murder Millie essentially, and it becomes clear that Timothy is Friendo? Question mark? Question mark? Question mark? But that is yeah. So eventually, Timothy sort of becomes this creature and tries to attack Millie and Joseph, played by Shadow. and they're sort of in another tug of war between the two of them. Ruth, played by Jessie, I guess was on the shore and was not sure what to do. And Timothy's taunting her and being like, get in here, this is your savior, and calls her a heretic and all that stuff. And then we see a car passing by, and we realize it is Marky from the first story. So Jesse's now playing two characters. This was really fun to make Jesse do this because he was like, I didn't know I was gonna do this. So I was like, well, he has to do something because he was going to the cops first. So I was like, we gotta try to tie this in. So eventually Marky hears the crying out. He's driving by this place, and I believe he gets out. I think he gets out to help. Yeah. So Timothy's been hit with catatonic for the second time. Ruth will continue to give a hug. So Ruth and Timothy start hugging, and they're really happy for each other that they're finding Friendo or something. And I guess they're going to give themselves to Friendo. Let's see. Yeah, so Marky finally gets to the lake and realizes that a child is, looking like she's about to be murdered by some creature, and tries to help her. And then Millie gets very conflicted, and she decides she actually wants to go back to Friendo. And she gets uncomfortable with Marky, and Marky's like, no, we have to go. We like this thing is trying to kill you. We need to leave. And let me see, who ended up rolling a 1 with her attempt to fight this, but she wasn't. This wasn't she was picking it like this, and he. Oh yeah, so Ruth ends up deciding that she wants out. She's uncomfortable. Like she feels like she now decides that this is not what she wants, and she tries to get out of it. But Jesse ended up rolling a 1, so Ruth gets drowned. Yeah, so it made it easier for Jesse because then he had to only play one character, which is good. So eventually, poor Jesse. Jesse can't help but die, but Marky survives. It's good. So everyone tries to get Millie out. Millie then calls out for Timothy. She wants to go back. She wants to go back to Friendo. Millie is very annoying. I apologize, but it made the story interesting. I don't know. And so that's another tug of war between Millie and Joseph and Marky and Timothy. This poor girl is getting jerked around, and so Millie starts like fighting Marky, and I kept rolling really low, so Marky pretty much subdued me. And Joseph stays behind to fight Timothy, and I think yeah, he does. He loses. Yeah, so he stays to fight Timothy while Marky drags Millie to the car. Joseph, yeah, I just see red. Sadly, Joseph's pleas would go unfounded. Friendo outright yanked him into the lake and began to try and drown him on the lake's surface. So sad. So Friendo kills the whole party except for Millie. And so Millie keeps trying to make a break for it, like keeps trying to run away from Marky. But I believe, I think he just rolled better than me. I think Jesse just like outrolled me completely. But I remember the sequence lasting pretty long. And we realize this is the really cool part. So Shadow actually played Joseph the child. Oh my god, I forgot about this. This makes me so sad. So sad. So Joseph Joseph was the original kid from CV2. So he ended up dying too. So he and Shadow's character from CV2 survived the events of CV2 only to be killed in CV12, which is like, oh, it makes me so sad. And he couldn't save Millie a second time. He tried to save Millie the first time. He couldn't do it. It's so sad. So I believe Joseph ends up dying. And uh, yeah, yeah, it's very, very, very sad. Um, so Timothy whispers, he would hear Frendo whisper in his ear again, "Will you be my friend?" Just so creepy. And I think Timothy and oh wait, Timothy doesn't die. That's so weird. I mean, Joseph, they're still fighting. I thought he ends up dying. I know they fight for a long time. Yes, he eventually dies. Okay, that's what it is. Joseph looked up at Timothy and weakly smiled. I will meet you, my brothers and sisters. I'm okay with that. Yeah. So he ended up getting drowned. So there's a long fight between him and Timothy. And eventually Timothy sort of gives over to Frendo in this sort of like very creepy, seance kind of thing. And his last line is "All hail," which is the title of the second piece. So now we're down two pieces. We come back to Alex, who is very, very confused, and the file that held the second story disappears. It disintegrates, in fact, and eventually she hears a muffled, recorded voice, and the little girl that was in front of her bursts into flames. To a crisp, it says. And she keeps hearing someone upstairs, so she makes her way upstairs to this sort of creepy random house that she doesn't understand. And then Alex sees a woman in a maid outfit burst into the kitchen, leaning on the door and sigh, clearly happy to gain relief from whoever's on the other side of the door. But this woman doesn't see her, and she says, "Please calm down, Napita, I'm coming." And we realize it's the maid from CV2. So this is like this is the house, this is the decrepit house from CV2. And Alex is basically just watching all of like basically these ghosts wander around, and she doesn't know what to do about it. But eventually, she gets to a room upstairs that has a bunch of creepy dolls, and we know about dolls from CV7. And she goes to the doll. She finds a laptop that's sitting there, sort of stealthily, like as if it's meant to record something. And someone says "be late." It's some like muffled kind of sound. So there's something being recorded, and then we get into file 3, which is entitled "Flesh." So I'm gonna post "Flesh" here. Oh yeah, let me also do. Let me do "All Hail." This one is "All Hail," and this one is "Freak Like Me." Yeah, there we go. So then we get into Flesh, which is this is a really fun one. So this is based on CV. Which one is that? Which one is the doctor? CV7? Nope. CV5? Nope. CV4? Nope. Yeah, CV4. CV4, the dating game. I don't remember which one it is. Anyway, so we see a woman in an apron as she's trying to pack lunch boxes. Obviously, she's a housewife and she's getting her husband and child out of the door. And finally, when they finally leave, she gets to do her own thing. She pulls her laptop out of the cabinet. Clearly, she was hiding it from her family. And she goes on this dating website. And she starts chatting with sort of a swiping situation. I guess her laptop is touchscreen. I didn't really think that one through. So it's a yes or no, and her username is Slitney Houston. And she starts chatting with this person called Too Wild in the 70s, which is an allusion to CV4. And oh wait, no, it's not CV4. It's an allusion to CV3. CV3, not CV4. Forget CV4. That comes later. Yes, allusion to CV3. The Fox, which if you don't know the Fox was about a doctor. It's also CV2 and CV3 are probably the most shocking of the CVs, but CV3 is a doctor who is fusing animals to humans. And oh my god, Flash, this one's good. Hi, Maddie. So so the housewife basically she's on a text chat with this person, and they're kind of trying to figure out if they like each other, and it seems really innocent and cute, sort of. And but they end up doing a voice call, and after Slitney Houston feels a little bit more comfortable, she calls herself Betty, and eventually they figure out that they're going to meet up. They decide to meet up together. So this guy whose name is played by Maddie, but his name is, I forgot what his real name ended up being. Oh, Isaiah. Isaiah. So Isaiah comes in, and it's almost like a real date, and you're like, what is this housewife doing on a date? So she gets some water. They chat a lot, and then eventually she's just like, all right, so you want to follow me? And they go to a hidden panel in the kitchen and the pantry, and they go to the secret back room. It's very hostile, Hostile the movie being thing, and so she has them get on the table. She puts on her doctor's outfit, and then she puts on a wolf mask, which I'm going to post in chat because I thought this was creepy. Hang on, let me post this in the chat. There we go. Yep. So she puts on this wolf mask, and she starts getting to work. Oh my god, there's Princess Zoe! By the way, Zoe, if you want to talk, by the way, you can feel fucking free. And let me see where we're at. Yeah. So yes, Isaiah ends up raising an eyebrow at the wolf mask, and she straps him in, and then she addresses her audience, which I'm going to. Here, I will post this in the chat. No, this was sad. So jump scared again. So I'm gonna play this for the podcast. I don't know if the audio listeners will hear it, but or the other things. Let me see. Will it play? Hope it plays. That's my YouTube channel. Oh yeah. Here we go. Damn it, go. Why would it go? I don't know if it's gonna go. Hang on. That's so weird. It only plays the first part. Yeah, it won't play the whole thing. I don't know why. But anyway, she basically uses a voice disguiser to address her fans in sort of this Alvin and the Chipmunks kind of voice. And she turns it up to a website called Sexy Suicides, which is from CV9, if you remember, which is kind of, oh gosh, if you don't know about that, just go to CV9. So she pulls out a medical knife and she sort of runs it across his chest. She slices his shirt open, and he starts making incisions. She starts making incisions into his body, and people are chatting on the live stream, kind of excited. Clearly, this is like a snuff site for people who are into, live mutilations. And so, poor Maddie, poor Maddie, had to subject themselves to this. So there's this one chatter that keeps tipping a lot and asks for this housewife to do more weird things, cut deeper, cut different things. Eventually, she just starts slicing off limbs, and Isaiah holds on for kind of a long time, and eventually she, oh yeah, let me see. Does she end up killing Isaiah? I think she does. I think she ends up. No, no, not yet, not yet, not yet. So a doorbell happens, and a character played by Swift, of course, we stand Swift, Queen of the CVs, named Francisco Asturias. and he's a doctor, and he reveals himself as the one who's been tipping her and chatting a lot in the live stream, and she invites him downstairs to help out, and she gives him a mask. Ready for another jump scare? She ends up giving him a mask to wear. Jump scare. Yeah, so he ends up wearing that mask, which some people said wasn't that scary. I think that one's scarier. I think that one's scarier than the wolf mask, but I guess to each their own. Oh, by the way, if anyone wants to, let me, if you want to, I'll invite you. You're allowed to if you want to, but you don't have to. If you want to speak, um, there's Zoe. Oh, don't think I have a mic up.
So,
What's up? How the star of the CVs? You're literally the star of the entire CVs. How does it feel?
feels good.
Must be nice. Must be nice. Um. Anyway, so I'll continue with this one. Yeah. So basically, Swift's character is now kind of guiding this housewife in person to make more and deeper and weirder incisions on poor Isaiah's body. And let me see. So eventually, it just she keeps cutting. She keeps like cutting different parts of his body and stuff like that. I also had Fire Demon 2021 tip $666 as a as a as a little Easter egg. And eventually, she gets kind of to the end, and I don't know if she ends up really killing. Does she end up killing him? This is awkward. I think this is something to say. Frank clamps him down, wriggles the knife that was stabbed him. The blood's no longer flowing. Inclined his head from the face. Yeah, I don't know if he ever actually ends up dying. I mean, it's clear he's going to die. But eventually, she was supposed to kill you. Picked up the woman. Oh, wait. Oh, did she die? Hang on. I might be wrong about this. I might be wrong. Hang on. Hang on. You're forming an audience now, dear. Wait, when is the last time that I posted? Lady takes off her coat, puts in the jacket, replaces the wolf mask, turns on the cameras, and resumes the live stream. She steps back a bit on a much, much bigger scale. There's a man in the 70s, he was fusing people. Oh, so yeah, she was a student of... I don't think she killed him. Okay. Maddie's saying I don't think she killed him. And she was a student of... I remember she ended up saying that she was like a student of Dr. Helsvik. That was a big thing. Let me go to what Maddie just said. Yeah, even the little tripped on the floor doesn't stop Isaiah. He's still somewhat standing. He looks beside him to find the woman. She's not breathing. Oh, yeah. How did she die? She ended up dying. Did he kill her? Or did she kill him? She kill him herself. Frank killed her. Oh. Oh. Right. Let me just see. Just not just saying crashing herself to the floor. Oh yes. Okay. So the big reveal. Okay. So here's what it is. You tortured my father. I've been waiting for you. So that's what it was. So her son. I mean, so her father. That's what it was. Her father was involved in the events of CV3. I forgot who her father was. And she was like doing these live streams to try to coax Dr. Helsvik to come to her. Would it be Alex? I guess it would have to have been Alexander. I guess Alexander was her father. I mean, they're all old enough to have had kids. They're just in their 20s, but or early teens, or late teens, or early 20s. Anyway, so she, yeah, so I guess she assumes that Frank, who is played by Swift, is Dr. Helsbeck, and she tries to kill him, and then he ends up killing her. That's what it was. or I guess no, she charges him with a knife. He steps out of the way, and she like trips on the hospital bed and I guess stabs herself or something. Yeah, so that's what happens is that she ends up killing herself. Oh, I forgot about this. This is what I don't remember the most. And Isaiah ends up being alive. I don't know. He's very dismembered at this point. I don't know what Lindsay has or doesn't have. And Frank ends up talking to Isaiah, and then he tilts his head to the camera and says, "Interesting usernames. You'll appreciate what you're reviewing." And the final note is the doctor is tipped $600,000 with a message that says yes, which is my favorite ending. So the doctor, he was watching. The doctor, I guess, is still out there. Maybe he's still alive. I don't know. Maybe someone just named the doctor. I don't know. I don't know. So Alex comes back. Oh, by the way, wait, Zoe, if you're by your mic, I'm just curious. What did you think about all the interstitials? Were you like, what were you? How did you? I don't know. Did you know what you were doing? Were you like, what the
I
fuck's
did
happening?
not.
I figured. I figured. I figured. Um, Interesting. I'm trying to think if there's any questions I have about these, but I guess not. um, so Alex, let me see what she does. This is the one. Oh yeah, the dolls have disappeared, and Alex is looking for them. Where do they go? She goes to the top of the house, where there seems to be another level. She glances up at the ceiling and hears singing. She sees children on the driveway running away from a man who is pointing a gun at them and yelling. This is an allusion to CV2, the really crazy finale of CV2. God, I love CV2. And the dad trying to kill the kids. And she sees a string dangling from the ceiling. And there's a boy who walks to the string and leaps to it and grabs it and pulls it down. There's a ladder so she can go into an attic situation. And when she goes up there, she notices a radio playing a pretty cool rock song. Alex looks around to try to see if there's anything around, and we realize that this is a modern song, which leads into our next file, which is there's nothing more depressing than having everything and still feeling sad. I'm gonna post the link here. Let me see. Let me post this here. This is my favorite. So this line actually comes from Cowboy Bebop. Pressing then. Oh no. Having everything until. Sorry, this line actually comes from Janet Jackson. That's actually not true. Everything and still feeling sad. So this is actually a really fun story. This follows. Once again, Jesse is the star of this one. And he plays a rock star, and they're at a board meeting and they're trying to figure out what this rock star's like next move is. He's sort of a maybe a Steven Tyler type, like a Bon Jovi type, and trying to figure out what to do with his career. His name is Josiah Mark Jones or J.M. Jones, and clearly was like a huge artist in the 80s and 90s, and they're trying to figure out like what to do. The label's basically like, we got to drop you if this isn't gonna work out anymore. And J.M. Jones and his assistant Chris, who loves and adores him, is trying to figure out a way to do a concert because artists make the most money through concerts. So they're trying to figure out how to plan this really cool concert. Obviously the label doesn't believe in J.M. Jones, thinks he's kind of a has-been. And as they leave the board meeting, J.M. Jones gets a DM from a fan, like on a Twitter website of some kind, and basically says like, oh, you changed my life, I love you, whatever. And JM, who's not super savvy with social media, is like, oh, that's cool, let me chat with him. And Chris is like, don't talk to your fans on social media. And he's like, no, it's cool. So they sort of start this parasocial relationship. They keep chatting, it's it's a lot of like this person becomes a little bit too chatty with J.M. Jones, and eventually, let me see what happens because eventually, how do they get to that part? Oh yeah, so eventually they keep rehearsing. They're trying to find a venue for this new concert that they're doing, and eventually this user named Flames of Ember, fire, says that he basically doesn't want to be here anymore. He wants to kill himself, yada yada, and it's almost yada yada suicide. So J.M. Jones is like trying to help this kid, you know, feel better, and eventually the person decides he wants to call J.M. Jones on the website, and Jay's like, okay. The young boy is maybe like 8 or 9, and they talk, and basically the kid wanted to find out if J.M. Jones was real, if he was talking to the real J.M. Jones, and they keep talking, and I'm trying to see. Oh yeah, whatever you say. So are you planning on dying? Or are you going to give up, and are you going to survive? So I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Live free. I don't let generation. I'm trying to remember what the purpose of that character was. He had a purpose. I just don't remember what it was. Uh, Let me see. Yeah, I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, so he comes to the concert, I believe. It's coming on my own money. I can handle it. Oh yes, that's what it was. That's what it was. I remember. So Josiah of Jam Jones invites this kid to his concert, which is all that kid needed to stay alive. He was definitely a young child and nothing else. So then we cut to the concert, waiting in line, and we have two characters, Paolo and Shorin, played by Swift and Leah, respectively. And they're waiting in line. They're big fans. They're it's a big concert. It's a huge turnout, which they did not expect. And let's see. So we have JM gets a buzz from his social media. The Flames of Ember kid is like, "I'm here. I hope you spot me in the crowd." And JM's like, "Yeah, I'll try. What color shirt are you on? Do you have on?" And he's like, "When you see me, will you bring me on stage?" And it gets a little creepy. He's sort of like little creepy. And he's like, "I'll try to, man. Let me get you get a backstage pass I emailed." And then he just says, "Yes, I can't wait to meet you." And it just says Flames members typing. And then as JM is waiting for a response, he realizes he has to go on. And so everyone gets to the into the concert, and the concert starts. He starts playing his big hit, which I forgot what his hit was, but he had a name for it. And eventually, this Flames of Ember kid starts DMing Swift's character Paolo, and starts just chatting with him about like asking if he's at the concert too, where he's at, what he's doing, and eventually, I believe, best friend is too. Yeah, so basically, Paolo's like telling him, this random person, like, "Oh, we're at the concert too. Where are you? Where's everybody?" And let me see what happens eventually. Oh yes, so Chris, this is the part that's weird. So Chris, who's JM's assistant, gets a call from one of the managers saying, Chris, you're not listening to me. We put out a press release for the concert tonight. We advertise it as next week. There's no way people could be showing up tonight." Which Chris is like, that's impossible. It's a sold out house. How did you advertise for something that tons of people have clearly stood in line for? And Don, the manager, is like, "You told me to switch it to next week." And Chris is like, "No, I didn't. I told you it was this week." And Don was like, Chris, we spoke on the phone Monday. Is this some kind of joke to you? And it is clear that someone has impersonated Chris's voice. And eventually it becomes clear that when Paolo starts to see wings coming out of a bunch of red-eyed people behind him, and eventually everyone's like, cosplayers? So it starts to look as if Paolo and Leah's character are the only humans that are in the audience. The rest of the audience are Mothmen. So it becomes clear that whoever was on the other side of that DM was some sort of Mothman, because they always say the Mothman can change their voice, and so they sort of set up this situation to eat people. So that sucks. So eventually, now Paolo and the fuck was Shorin, yeah, Paolo and Shorin are on a race against time to get out of the way. So I this is one of my favorite parts. So they have to climb on the rig of the stage, and they have to figure out like how to how to get across. So the safest place basically becomes the stage. So so the two of them, oh my god, I did not think they were going to make this, but if you know what a rig is, it's sort of this it's this tall tower. Like you usually have it at concerts. It's where they hold the speakers, but you can climb up the little, this sort of barbed, not barbed, but like this series of bars that like goes up to this thing. Anyway, it's high and tall and scary. So they go across, and eventually, like these small Mothman creatures are like coming after them and grabbing them, like almost making them fall off. I thought they were both gonna die. I was so sure they're both gonna die. But after a lot of rolling, killed a bunch of creatures. Actually, they got a bunch of the little Mothman creatures. So they run across the scaffolding. We'll call it scaffolding, and they eventually get to the stage, not without some difficulty. I know Shorin at one point is like hanging off the scaffolding, and but eventually they both get to the stage, which is kind of amazing. So now Paolo, Shorin, Chris, and JM are on the stage fighting these creatures, and the big one comes, the big old baddie, and they all start fighting it. And I believe this is the part where yeah, yeah, this is the so they keep fighting the creature. The four of them start fighting the creature using like bars of the rig. I think one of them like uses a bar or something like that to start fighting the creature. That gets really crazy now. At one point, they have to jump off the scaffolding. Oh yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, they had to just like run, book it. Anyway, long story short is they make it off the scaffolding. They're good, which I did not expect. So eventually, Chris's phone. Oh yeah, here we go. Suddenly, a phone rings. It's Chris's. Paolo looks at Chris in pure confusion, and Chris looks down at their pants, looks at the creature, and slowly picks up their phone. They look at the number, and then to Josiah and shake their head, showing Jay the phone to reveal there's no number listed. Josiah would grab the phone and answer it. He says hello in the middle of something, which I love that. And the creature stares at Josiah without moving its non-existent mouth. I'm going to send you. I don't know if we'll play the audio.
We
Oh yeah.
cannot let you leave.
Oh god, that's so creepy. So it says we cannot let you leave, but it says it in creepy language, which I'm going to post here. Here we go. That part is really creepy. I hate it. So it says we cannot let you leave, and then JM's like, I really don't care. And what's the next thing he says? Will it play? I don't know. Probably not. Anyway, basically, it becomes clear that whoever Jam was talking to, and also whoever the manager was talking to, this Mothman was communicating with all the people involved. and set this up. So now they have to fight the creatures. The creatures come back at them, and eventually, I believe Chris ends up sacrificing himself to the group. Yeah, the creature impales Chris against the side of the stage. It holds its position against Chris as if telling them a secret. Chris's eyes widen as blood erupts from their mouth. Ooh, what was the secret? I don't know. I actually don't remember what it was. So Chris ends up dying. I die, essentially. And they continue to fight with a crowbar. I believe a crowbar happens. And JM basically says he's going to hold them off. He starts singing, and the creatures have some sort of feel like hypnotized or something. And what inspired him to sing? Hey, let me see. Let me see. Start doing shit. Oh yeah, Josiah begins to hear familiar sound coming from the audience. Somehow we can't see that they're doing it, but the audience is humming duality. Remember, duality was its hit. It's called duality. The creatures are not moving. Josiah would look around and he'd start gently sing duality to see if there would be any reaction. The creatures turn toward Josiah at attention and begin to hum louder and swaying in time. So there's some sort of hypnotizing that this song has over these creatures. And so he basically tells the two kids to like beat it, get out of here. And basically the as Josiah stops singing, or he starts singing, he starts head towards the exit. The creatures stop singing and start to look restless again, like they want to attack. So basically, Josiah realizes that he can't like stop these creatures. He has to stay with them if he wants the kids to survive. So he says Josiah realizes his fate. He went back center stage to continue his performance for the masses, just so his friends would live. So one of his friends fucking died. So eventually we get to a news report that says the world's perplexed as famed musician and gender non-conforming trailblazer J.M. Jones remains missing. Their reps would be reached for comment with no response. Their friends and family have also been contacted, who say that they are unclear what their motives would be for disappearing and that they must have had something happen to them. J.M. Jones's label, Cookie Cutter Records, I don't know why I made that up, will be putting on a benefit concert with such acts as Panic at the Disco, Demi Lovato, Blue Stally, Janelle Monáe, and so many more to come out to honor the missing icon. In other news, police are shocked as the DNA remains of a young girl who was missing in 1997 in West Virginia. Oh boy. After blood splatter was noticed by police hound in the concert hall, which J.M. Jones was scheduled to perform in a week after they went missing. Police say there are two cases that are not connected, but the young girl was living with her parents before. And then one new voicemail.
When I told you I was your biggest fan, I meant it.
Oh my god. I'm gonna post this. I'm gonna post it in a second. That's so creepy. Oh my god. Okay, so you can't hear it. I'm gonna post it here, but I put in a little voice note that says, "When I told you I was your biggest fan, I meant it." So it was very clear that the Mothman was also this Flames of Ember DMer. So the allusion to the last part, the missing remains of a girl missing in 1997, is none other than one of the main characters of CV. Was it 6? Nope. 5? Truth or Tale? Yes, from Truth or Tale. That was I forgot what that girl's name was, but yes, that is huge lore that I will not get into. But CV5, remember it. So we get back to Alex, who has waken up in a lab with a cell phone, listening to the voicemail of that creepy Mothman thing. Excuse me. So Alex finds herself back in the lab of the Fox, where Elena opens her eyes. Oh, I love. It's also had a little cute little appearance in the CVs once again. And Elena like walks her to her next area. And Elena's in her sort of disheveled state when she died in CB3. So she's like, you've seen again M. Night Shyamalan, I See Dead People, that one. It's very that. And so she leads Alex to a door that says Dr. Helsvik, and leads her into the back rooms. Which, if you remember, at Dr. Helsvik's office, there was like a back room where he was keeping his dad. Long story. God, that one is so gross. Now that I think about it. And finally, as Alex gets down to the end of the corridor, she finds a cell phone that says, "You have a new match." That was already on a dating site. And then we get into file 5, which is, they say humans are social animals. They can't be alone, which that is a quote from Cowboy Bebop. Yes, Maddie's here. I'm just going to call this one social animals, but this is one of my favorite ones, and this one won me a heli. So I'm happy this one happened. So in the hospital waiting room, the song Duality is playing because it's linked to the last one. And we see that there's this woman who is narrating, which is breaking form from the original format of these stories. So we see a pregnant woman who's sort of like looking around. She's waiting for her turn. She goes into the doctor's office. She is very pregnant. And the doctor says, "Any day now. And some days I want to say the truth, but instead I divide it by 13. And he asks, I guess, wait, she asks how many weeks she is, I think. Yeah, he asked me how far along I am. She says 39, 40, somewhere in there. Which obviously is, kind of normal. But in reality, she has been 520 weeks pregnant. She's been pregnant since the 70s, I think. And it's in modern day now. So we are now going to get into the final story of The Weeping Woman, which is from the dating game CB4, which is our shortest CB. Really fun one. I love that one. So we meet Kathy Turner, whose real name is Cassidy Taylor. And she basically, after the events of the dating game, she is still alive. Her husband has passed away from cancer, and she was abandoned by. Oh no, she didn't run away. Did she run away with anybody? No, she tried to run away with her husband, and they tried to live on the run, but he died of cancer, and now she's alone and pregnant and dating. So she goes on a series of dates. She goes on 3 dates. Her first one is the Stepford Bro, which I had Swift play the Stepford Bro, and he's just a douchebag. He's your typical douchebag, and he's not great. He's kind of a dick, and and oh my god, one of the lines was, "Oh, so you're Kathy Turner? Goodness, at least give me a message telling me what you're gonna wear next so I can find you easier." And she's not having it. I guess he's from Japan. His name was Hideo. Yeah, he's Japanese. He's part Japanese and American. He's Japanese American. So they end up. Just make sure I'm deleting this thing. They end up going on a date. Kathy's not into it. She kind of hates him. He's annoying, and he kind of not pokes fun at her for being pregnant, but he's not great about her being pregnant. And oh yeah, he's like talking about what she's eating. He's like giving her like tips on how to eat while she's pregnant, and she's like, "Fuck this guy." So eventually she leaves and and leaves him behind. First date unsuccessful. The next date is one of my favorite moments in CB12, which is her date with the gardener. And this is one of this little part, quote unquote little part, ended up netting Alcoholic Nick a Helly nomination for best RP character because he was so good, so good. So the gardener man basically, like, he has her drive out to his ranch to have their date there. He is weird. He is very weird. He ends up being like a big like nature freak. He doesn't like he eats very clean, but he's also really weird, and he lives with his mom. And I remember when she gets there, he goes, "Mom, we have visitors. Don't bother me until they're gone." And Kathy's like, "Oh fucking god, what am I doing?" So he's also very very rude. He's really gross. He like kind of treats her like a pig. He asked her if he's a gentleman, and she sarcastically responds, "How can someone have not scooped you up yet?" And so they have pleasant conversations, and what sets him off the first time? Oh yeah, so yeah, she gets a little irritated, and like she drinks some wine, and then he makes some really bad food, and she gets really mad at him. She flips it on the table because he's kind of an asshole, and then he like turns away and starts murmuring "bitch, bitch, 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 bitch" to himself, and she looks at the knife on the table, and she's like, maybe I should stab this guy. Maybe he's crazy. Maybe I need to fucking defend myself. And she gets really mad at him, and she just starts berating him. She says, "What did she do? Who is Mary?" Oh, I guess like there was someone named Mary that he used to date that she was making fun of, and she makes fun of his vegan life, and he gets really really pissed, and he starts like wailing on her, and someone put Dio put scared eyes when Nick writes attempts to beat the pregnant woman, which is horrible. So she ducks for cover, and they start tussling. They start fighting, and I can't believe I didn't have the babies come and eat him, but I guess it just didn't happen. So eventually they get to a standstill, and she gets to a nearby wall and says, "Just let me leave, and we'll call it even, okay?" He has a knife in his hand, and he says, "Leave. You'll die for your sins against the earth anyway." And she eventually gets out. Oh my god, I can't believe I wrote this. So she gets out, and she ends up using it for masturbation fodder later on. Just so weird. God, Kathy's so fucking weird. Okay. Anyway, so finally she starts to I'm so glad I decided to use headphones for this. Yes, sorry. This gets weird. So finally Kathy goes to her local supermarket, and no, it's her coffee place, right? Right, Maddie? And she starts to develop kind of a crush on this cashier named Marina, who seems. Let me see what I wrote about Marina. In front of me stands a multicolored haired, non male person in overall glitter and a myriad of tattoos, rings, and yeah, that was basically it. So Marina is this really cool person who Kathy's like kind of into. And so they kind of, I feel like the flirting is really one-sided. Basically Kathy is flirting with Marina, and Marina's just kind of doing their job. And eventually I believe Kathy like asks Marina out. And yeah, so it's very cute, like, at the coffee shop. Marina brings it's so funny because like Marina really just like does their job, and then Kathy's like, "Oh my god, you brought me some food, like you brought me my food." It's like, yeah, lady, that's my job. It's just like, poor Kathy's so lonely, she's just so lonely. So eventually Kathy asks Marina out. Also, Maddie, please chime in whenever you want to, and I will read you your comments out. because I know I'm speeding through this. Basically, let me see. So Kathy's assessment of Marina was a pleaser. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I actually mean that in a really beautiful way. Marina had a quality that was strong, self-reliant in the way that so Kathy is getting pronouns correctly, were able to give over power. It was as if there was permission given, and it was as to say, I am strong enough to give you my own power. I knew this because I had been a pleaser in the worst of ways, and I wanted to take care of Marina if she'd let me. Red flags, red flags. So after Marina's shift, they went to go get some frozen yogurt. They have a very innocent, very, chill meeting. It's like barely a date. I don't even know if it's a date. This usually got me to try froyo. No way, Maddie. And how do you feel about froyo now? By the way, I need the review. How do you feel about froyo now? It's good. Froyo. It's the best. I love it. So eventually they go get froyo. It's good. They have this weird conversation about froyo, and they sort of get to know each other. Marina is, a chill person. They talk about Kathy's husband dying of cancer. Kathy talks about being pregnant. I'm trying to think anything like wild happens. Oh yeah, she does Marina. Marina does an impression of a dog bark at some point. Why did that happen? Hang on. Oh yes, that's right. Because Kathy asked Marina to bark like a dog, to imitate the dog that would bark at them when Marina was a kid. Yeah, that's right. So it's cute. It's it's kind of cute. A little weird, but kind of cute. Nothing too weird. And Kathy gives Marina an $100 bill for their time, which is a little odd. Poor Kathy has never really been on a date where she likes someone. And eventually, their conversation sort of turns, like they split for the day, and then Kathy calls Marina and asks them about their thoughts about having a kid or like carrying a child. And oh god, I knew that Maddie had no idea where I was going with this, and I'll tell you the inspiration behind this later. But like, this gets so weird, and I love it. So Kathy starts to get a little bit like interested in the idea of like, Marina, how do you feel about like having children and specifically carrying children? And then Kathy asks Marina to if they know any salamanders, and says asks Marina to find a salamander, and take care of a salamander. And this is where Maddie rolled an 11 and found a juicy salamander immediately. So like they are on the phone, and they Kathy like talks Marina through finding a salamander. Oh, Maddie's typing. I love this one. And there's this like really tender moment with the salamander Marina like playing in its hand. If you ever felt a salamander, by the way, they're very cool feeling. I like salamanders. And eventually, oh yeah, feel free to, you can chat, Maddie. I will come back to whatever you say. By the way, I've been talking forever. My goodness. And eventually, Kathy tells Marina to close their hand. It's for something very upcoming. Okay, good. So eventually, Kathy, after this very sweet moment with the salamander Marina, Kathy instructs Marina to close their hand. And they close their hand, and Kathy says harder. And eventually, Marina closes their hand a bit harder. Marina is basically Kathy's instructing Marina to like suffocate the salamander. And eventually the salamander dies, and Marina feels a little bit uncomfy with that. Says, I just killed an animal. and Kathy is like, "How do you feel? How do you feel?" And Marina finally like kind of turns on Kathy and is like, "I feel not great. This is gross. Why did this happen? This is I don't like this." And eventually they meet again at a hospital. I don't remember why they're here. I'm trying to see what happened. Oh yeah. So they go to the NICU. So they go to where the newborns are, and they pretend to be parents. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So they pretend to be well, more Kathy more than Marina. Marina's just kind of along for the ride, and Kathy's like asking Marina like, "What would you name that one? What would you name that one?" It's kind of weird. I mean, it's kind of sweet if you think about it, but it's mostly weird. And then eventually, Marina says Cassidy. Oh, that's a nice name, Cassidy. Interesting. And then Kathy's like, "Oh my God, does she know my real name?" And then Kathy says, "Should we take Cassidy?" And basically, Kathy starts to suggest that they should steal a kid. And Marina goes along with this, which is like so fucking wild. And did Marina go along with this? Marina really wanted children. Oh my gosh, I'm putting in the spoiler. Salamander was a fantasy death. I think it was too. I think it was horrible. I feel so bad. I feel so bad. Oh, poor Salamander. So eventually they steal a gown and a face mask, and let me see how it ends up going. So a nurse, I think, like tells oh yeah, like a nurse like confronts Marina and basically calls her out that like it's clear that Kathy and Marina are not doctors or nurses. And let me see. So do they like book it? Do they just like get out of there? Is that what happens? Do you remember what happens, Maddie? I think it's I remember. I remember. So they like Kathy goes in with the nurse to a I remember this. Kathy goes in with the nurse to have a private conversation because obviously the nurse is like, "What are these two weird people doing here?" And Kathy's like, "One second, I'm gonna just talk to her really quick." So they both walk into the office, and then 20 minutes later, Kathy walks out of the office alone, grabs Marina, and says, "Let's go. We're done here." And that nurse is never seen again. And we'll come back later. So eventually, that's suspicious, and I know that's right. Let me see. What is the next thing? So yeah, so Marina's at her house, and someone calls them. I think Marina's pronouns were she, they. I don't remember. I mean, I'm seeing she and they. I don't know. I'll have to go with she as well because I'm seeing she. So Marina gets a call from someone who doesn't know her, and basically instructs her. I use she they for her. That's right. So a stranger basically calls Marina, basically warning her about Kathy, who she's been talking to for a while, and eventually Kathy calls on another line, and Marina puts both the stranger and Kathy on a three-way call. The stranger mutes himself. And Kathy invites Marina over, I believe. And before she goes, I think is this where the guy reveals himself? Is this what happens, Maddie? I'm trying to remember the order of events. Victor, yes, Victor comes. Is this when Victor comes in? And basically, what happens is that the strangers who reveal themselves are the victims of CV4, who have like been looking for, or some of the victims of CV4, who are looking for looking for Cassidy, formerly Cassidy, now Kathy, to bring her to justice. So they say they're going to follow Marina there to make sure she's okay and all that stuff. So eventually, Kathy puts out some mac and cheese, full date, full thing. And yeah, so eventually once they revealed themselves, a couple folks came back. I think it was Swift, and it's funny because Maddie had to play Victor, who was also in CV4. So it was another Jesse situation where Maddie had to play two characters talking to each other, which was great. So we find out that the previous... Oh, I played Victor. Oh, that's right. I played Victor. Oh, gotcha. Fair enough. So eventually Trevor's back and Michael's back and oh, Swift's here. Swift, you can feel free to join on mic if you're there. I will. Are you there? Whoever wants. By the way, just at me in the Bonfire Bar chat if you want to be on mic, because you're definitely free to. What was I going? Oh shit! I lost my place. Yes. So the old folks from CV4 basically reveal themselves and say that they've been traumatized by this horrible situation that happened to them. If you all know about CV4, it is where Cassidy essentially hooked these unsuspecting men to oh my god, I don't even want to say it. It's so gross now. She basically hooked up these guys to extract their baby batter in order to make a baby with Cassidy. You wrote it, sir. You know what, Dio? I don't need your logic. I don't need your logic.
Why is this the most disgusting thing to you after everything else?
No, I don't care, Zoe. I don't know what you're talking about. I was just like, what did I let people do? Why did I let people involve themselves in this? Some folks were children. Zoe was a child when this started. Oh my god, I'm going to jail.
Yeah, it's right.
Because were you in CV4, Zoe?
Yeah, I was.
What did you feel about
the first CV?
Oh my god, were you aware of the twist?
Which one?
The everyone is all the men are connected to things that extract their stuff. No. Okay, that's probably for the best. Yeah, so the ending of CV4 is where they've been in this virtual reality dating show, and the reveal is at the end they're actually in present day, and or not present day, they were sort of in the 70s, which was connected to the Fox, whatever, and they had been hooked up. Their members had been hooked up to things that were hooked up to Cassidy, and they were extracting semen, blah 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 blah, so she can get pregnant, and that's why she has demon babies. It's her fault. So anyway, these now the characters will come back to essentially they've been tracking her down and trying to make sure she's brought to justice because she went on the run after the events. It's the only CV where I think it's the only CV where everyone survived. I think. So yeah, all the survivors come back, and now they want to use Marina to finally bring her to justice or kill her, whatever. Squirrel said some people won't pay good money for such a thing. Probably. So eventually Marina goes over to Kathy's house, and Kathy's made a full spread, drink, and offers her all kinds of food. And you all know the number one rule. I always change the number one rule of CVs, but the number one rule of CVs, and I know y'all know it, is never eat the food. If a Fire Demon character offers you food or drink, you don't eat it. And you will find out why in a second. Um, so Marina does what anyone does when they're put a plate of mac and cheese. I mean, who among us can resist mac and cheese? I'm sorry, I don't care what's in the mac and cheese. I'm eating the mac and cheese. Side note: there is a video. Has nothing to do with anything we're talking about. There's a video of a couple who had a dead rat in their soup. It happened in New York, not far from me.
What the fuck?
Yes, and there's a video of it. There's a video of they took a video of it, and it's an Asian restaurant. And I believe the couple's Asian too. But you see the video, and they're like, it is a full, and you see it. It is a full dead rat, full dead rat. And they were like, we made ourselves throw up. Like, and it was the problem was the rat was like in the bottom half of the soup, which means they ate half the soup, and then discovered the rat. Which, like, I would just kill myself. I would just die. That would be it. I would just jump off a building. I can't. I would never. I can't do it anymore. I cannot do it anymore. If anyone can find the video, it's around there somewhere. Post it with, like, I don't know, spoilers on either food porn or cute animals. I don't know which channel you use, but pick one. You won't get in trouble with either one, but yeah, it is horrifying. Anyway, and that is relevant because of what's happening next. So eventually, Marina, so Kathy's very much like, try the mac and cheese. I burnt it just right. By the way, burnt mac and cheese, delicious. Love it. Not this one, though. So eventually, she eats more mac and cheese, and Kathy sort of goes on this monologue about like how Marina really needs to think about like what her life is going to be going forward, and that she needs a little more job security. And it's like, oh, you can't be a coffee shop barista for the rest of your life. Like, don't you want a family, something to live for? And okay, let me go to this part because I'm curious about how this part goes. Kathy says, she slides her plate away and she says, I have a couple questions. I need you to tell me the truth. Marina says, go for it. Kathy says, how do you feel about me? And then Marina says, the same way I do for all my friends. You're a friend. I think you're cool and all. Which, like, can you imagine you're like deeply in love with someone and they're like, same friend I do for all my friends. You're a bro. Oh, fucking. Now I'm on Kathy's side. I'm mad at Marina again. So Kathy has it in her monologue. She says, I was crushed. Here's, what do you mean imagine a scene that happened before, says Sayori. Moments before disaster, says Squirrelish. Yes, this is where you got me fucked up. Ooh, oh my god, not Ratatouille. Oh my god, no, I'm so upset. So Kathy's crushed. She says, has this person who has unlocked everything in me, yet I unlocked nothing for her, which is so sad to me. And then she says, second question, which perhaps makes more sense. Did you tell the police about me? And Marina says, what are you talking about? You haven't done shit that would warrant me doing something like that. And then Kathy starts to turn on her, says, like, you lied to me over the phone. I could hear it in your voice. Because I think I had Maddie roll for deception. And I believe Maddie not only rolled low, I think Maddie might have rolled a 1 on that. So Kathy was very, very clear that Marina was lying. And Kathy says, I want to trust you, Marina. I really do, but this is so difficult for me. You have to understand. And basically Kathy's like, what are we doing here, Marina? We've been building all this time. What have we been building all this time? And Marina says, you tell me. You brought me into this mess of a situation. And eventually, Marina says, wait. Oh, yeah. Wait, Kathy says, oh, great. Now I'm a mess. How kind of you. Do you think I don't know that I'm a mess, Marina? She's crying, and then Marina says, you want to go tell that to the guys you kidnapped a while back? And then Kathy says, what are you talking about? And eventually Marina reveals that that she knows about Victor and Trevor and Michael and Cody and all the people from CV4. Oh my god. Kathy's very upset. She's like, what are you doing? This is cruel. I can't take this. Is too much. Which is such a, I love the tactic of being found out and then just start crying and be like, why are you doing this to me? Which is great. Use it sometime. It works. Not in the court of law, but everywhere else it does. So eventually, she goes on this really long monologue about how difficult it was to get pregnant, and she talks about how much she Dio says work for Kavanaugh. Oh my god, I forgot about that fucking fuck Brett Kavanaugh. I hope he dies. 824 8-minute monologue. I think, you know what? If we're talking about Oscars, I think this is what won Kathy the. I think this is what the scene that won Kathy the Helly. There's always a scene. I think this scene won Kathy the Helly. This is the pearl moment. So she says, "It's very, very hard and painful for my. It was very, very hard and painful for my husband and I to get pregnant." Which, by the way, I always think it's so weird when couples say like, "We got pregnant." I'm just like, y'all didn't. Anyway, that's for another story. I don't understand what pressures I had. My mother used to call me every day to ask if I was pregnant. She would remind me that she would leave me if I. She would remind me that he would leave me if I couldn't give him a child. She told me that even as a kid, I was made to give a man a baby, and I wanted one. I really did. I wanted to care for people, shape them into whatever they were going to be. That love turned into spite. I wanted to have children to give them better lives than I had. That is such a stupid idea today. I wish I hadn't gone along with it. Dennis and I. We had kept one-upping with how much we loved each other. We never actually said what the other wanted. We kept guessing. He thought I wanted children badly. I thought he wanted them even more. It turns out both of us didn't really care, which is so sad. She could have avoided all of this if they had just talked. Communication. We wanted each other to be happy. Now he's dead, and I'm like this. She looks down at her belly. And then I met you. I didn't think there could be any life after Dennis. You know, I've been pregnant for so many years that now that I've lost count, at least 30. She's been pregnant for 30 years. More probably. I can't even create life, let alone share it with someone else. But you, Marina, you've given me hope, and I might be able to love again. You, and she starts to crying. And then Marina asks, "What did you do? What did you try and do to get pregnant?" And Marina kind of softens a little bit this moment because, you know, when someone's crying. And then my favorite part. Kathy says, Kathy reveals she wanted someone else to be pregnant with her because she felt lonely because she's been pregnant for 30 years. She's literally lived as a 9-month pregnant woman for 3 decades, essentially. And she thought like, oh, if you get pregnant too, we could raise a child together. And she thought the next best thing would be, you know, if I didn't cook the meat. So because I didn't cook the meat, you know, you're now pregnant with me. And what she means by that is that I thought the next best thing to a baby might be a parasite, you know, something we could raise together, which is like my favorite fucking reveal. This is how far I can be for parasites. So, indeed, psychologists would have a field day here. So, Kathy gives, or, you know, she essentially attempts to give Marina a parasite through like salmonella through uncooked meat. Yes, what Dio posted. John Travolta. She tried to put John Travolta inside of her. So, so she Squirrel is just like, what the fuck am I listening to? So Kathy tries to give Marina a parasite that they can raise together. By the way, if you haven't read the book, this is all inspired actually from a book called what the fuck is that book called? I'll find it, but this is inspired from a book, like all the stuff in the CVs. So anyway, so Marina's, you know, fucking appalled, and she considers walking out of the house, and then eventually Marina can see that Kathy's stomach is moving. You can read. It was an audiobook. I listened to an audiobook, Dio. I can't read. I still can't read. Please don't spread that rumor that I can read. I use an audiobook, okay? Okay. So eventually this sends Kathy essentially into labor, quote unquote. But the labor that Kathy sends into is not children, but it is in fact the nurse that Kathy consumed back at the hospital. So a half-eaten leg comes out of her hoo-hoo, an arm, and a half-eaten torso wearing a white uniform comes out of her. So Kathy's like giving birth to these body parts, and just lots of blood. Also, big trigger warning. We're going to be talking about blood and guts and babies and pregnancies. So it's clear that whatever is inside Kathy is sentient and can consume things. She's she instead of things leaving Kathy's vagina, things tend to like to go inside the vagina, and not the stuff that like stays. Anyway, so Kathy is on the floor in the parents. Why are you smiling at the computer so much right now? You wouldn't get it. So Kathy's very excited because Kathy can't really, it's still a moment for her. Like it feels like she's having a baby with Marina right now, which is really sad. I'm on the train during rush. Are you going home, Maddie? So it says Maddie wrote, "Whatever love Kathy is showing to Marina, Marina is not, absolutely not reciprocating back. She looks at Kathy incensed." And then Kathy says, "If you want, you can end me." Oh no, to uni. You're going to uni. Okay. So eventually, 4 fetuses crawl out covered in blood, and they are attached to umbilical cords. So if you can just picture, if you will, a woman in the position of like having a baby, and then just like fetuses crawling out of her vagine, and ready for the runway. You know what I mean? And fire in the limo while the driver sweats nervously as the radio plays an audiobook. "Then I won't." She turns away. I got in my head that oh my god. Yeah, my driver's gonna sue me. That's true. Or says, "Kirk, what the hell am I listening to?" My Helly Award-winning performance room. That's what you're listening to. And so eventually a 5th fetus comes out, and they all try to attack Marina. So this is the cryptid, the Weeping Woman, with the fetuses that can attack people as they are attached to the mother. So these 5 fetuses eventually attack Marina, and then Trevor busts in to help in. He's been sort of listening via comms. I think he set up comms for like a listening piece for Marina to go in with. And so they fight the fetuses. And Marina, I guess, gets knocked out at some point, and the fetuses drag an injured Marina closer to Kathy's legs. I guess they're trying to eat Marina. Trevor hops out of the group's van and rushes with all his elder might towards Kathy's house, following the signal perfectly. And Kathy screams, "Please let them go! I love them, please!" I guess she's yelling at the fetuses not to eat them. So the fetuses have a mind of their own. They need to feed, which is a theme in the cryptids. All the cryptids seem to need to feed. Squirrelish. Oh my gosh. So they're, dragging Marina's body closer and closer and closer. Eventually Trevor comes in, and Kathy, who can't stop the fetuses, begs for him to help Marina. And they do another tug of war, and eventually Trevor drills his firearm, and he starts and then we just started shooting, wherever that meme is from Always Sunny. And the fetuses lunge at Trevor and Marina, and eventually Kathy just begs Trevor to kill her. Yep, there we go. So anyway, I started blasted. That's what Trevor did. Because fetuses, thank you, Dio. We love it. So Kathy looks up at Trevor, and she says, "Do it." Basically, "Please kill me." And eventually Trevor shoots her. And what happens when Kathy finally dies is that her body starts to morph into her age. So she was already well into adulthood when the events of CV4 happened. So at this point, she is very decrepit. And it says Kathy becomes so frail that she's unrecognizable. Everything on the ground in front of the two shrivel into bone and viscera. So Kathy and the fetuses all disintegrate. Which I actually got that death from Cowboy Bebop. There's a episode called "Sympathy for the Devil" about this kid who's actually really, really old. Not in like the I think it is actually kind of in the orphan way, but there's some sort of like he was touched by some meteor or something, and he was sort of cursed with being young. And finally, when he got killed, his body caught up with him, and he was like a decrepit old man. Like more than 100 years old, so he died. So we get to file 6, which is Gemini, which is probably our saddest one. Also, thanks y'all for voting for me for best RP character on that last one. So Gemini is the so Maddie. Well, Maddie, first before we move on, since Maddie's here, Maddie, how did you feel about being in that CV that story? How was that for you? I'm curious. Before we move on to file 6, let me see. We are 2 hours in. Oh my gosh. Maybe we'll take a break at some point. We'll take a break after 12, after 6. We'll do a little fiver. That was whack. I could just imagine Marina, Trevor, and Mikey sitting in IHOP or something after the ordeal, just like, But you survived, which is good. You ended up surviving. You survived. It's good. How did you feel? How did you feel about Kathy? Yes. Did you have any sympathy for Kathy? Did anyone have any sympathy for Kathy? No one cared about Kathy? Poor Kathy? Poor Kathy? I think no. I think you know what? I think she just wanted to be loved. She just wanted to be loved, and no one knew how to do that. Right? I'm talking for fedoras. I did. Thank you, Dio. Dio understood. Dio understood. Okay. Absolutely. I want to hear what Dio thinks. My poor baby Kathy. It's my baby. That's my baby. Kathy Cassidy. Sweet little Cassidy. She went on some bad dates. she just got lost along the way. Maybe a little therapy might have helped. Old Kath. Old Kath. Oh my gosh, I'm so curious what Dia's about to write. So yeah, we'll do file 6 and then maybe we'll take a little break. Dio says, "You ever known one of those women in their 30s who who got married to their first boyfriend and now realize they never actually loved each other? That for 100 years." Yes. Dio fucking gets it, bro. Oh my gosh. They get me. All right. Yeah, oh my god, Squirrelish is saying something. Yeah, so the next story, Need to Run. Thanks, Squirrelish. Thanks for coming through. Appreciate you. So the next file, before we take a nice little breaky, is Gemini. This is probably our saddest one. This is one of my favorite stories. So we go back to the hospital room from the beginning of the last file. It says Turner Kathy, and we find out that this CV starts the events. The beginning of the last CV also is the start of the next. Whatever, you know what I mean. Anyway, so we have this woman who has who's pregnant. She has 2 kids. She has twins named Scott and Alice. So we follow our protagonists. My Gemini was so upsetting. So Alice and Scott are these twins who live together, and their mom is not very well. She's a drug addict, and you kind of see that these two have a very deep bond, but like a very it's not adversarial. They have a deep bond, but they're also like different people. Alice is a little bit more. She's a little bit more of a rule follower, and Scott is a little bit more of a risk taker. So we follow them from babies to toddlers, and we start to see that their parent is not the most fit parent. We follow their mother. She has a horrible hangover. She's leaning against the wall with one eye open, which, my God, I don't know if I've ever been hungover that much. And Alice is essentially like they're making their own food. You know, the mom is not really being very present. And as they go to school, obviously all the kids are very mean to Alice, and mostly Alice, I believe. I don't know if they're mean to Scott. Yeah, Scott says ignore them. Oh yeah, they're mean to both of them. They're kind of outcasts in their school. And eventually, they're being bullied, yada yada. And then eventually, they're called to the to the principal's office, who informs them that something happened to their mother and that the house burned down and their mother is dead. So they then have to go into the foster care system. And after that, they have to go to this really horrible foster care place where all the foster kids are very rough, shall we say. And they start to split up a little bit. Like Scott and Alice start to go their own ways, make their own friends. And eventually some of the boys tell Scott, like, oh, like there's a plan to get some money and get out of this orphanage. And are you in? And ask the both of them, and essentially Alice is saying, like, this is stupid, we're not going to do that. And Scott is saying, oh no, we should do that. So there's a pivotal moment where the Scott and the other boys make a plan to get out of there, and Alice, I believe, I think she just straight up decides to stay. And so Scott successfully gets away. I modeled the scene after Uncharted 4. There's a scene from the orphanage where the kids escape. Anyway, so the boys get out and Alice stays, and this is the first time that Scott and Alice get separated for quite a long time. So I had behind the scenes, I had the two of them roll to see what their professions would end up being at each turn. So I broke the CV up into two sides. So side A was the Great Scott. And 10 years later, Scott is now 25. He escaped the wayward house of orphans, used his money well. He stole that money. There was a safe that was in the orphanage, and he got some moolah. And became an owner of a startup business where they sell jewelry, which is cool, I guess. I was a little disappointed with those roles. I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be more interesting than... I think I had more interesting stuff. I don't remember what his... I think he's like a recording artist was another one, but like, it's okay. He's a jewelry salesman, which also that's also not like a huge money-making business, depending on what it is. But anyway, so it's funny. Chris comes back in from the fourth file and wants to get some bling for J.M. Jones. This is obviously before those events, and we just see Scott doing well. He does very well, and he mentions that he used to have a sister to this man because I forgot how it comes up, but I think Chris is like fighting with one of their siblings, and eventually Scott's like, yeah, I used to have a sister. ... And then we get to side B, which is called Poor Alice. Alice is now 25. She is so she eventually aged out of the orphanage. So she was never picked up. No one ever. What's up, Shadow? Oh, by the way, Shadow, if you want to join in on the conversation, feel free. Just at me, and I can put you in on the voice chat. So eventually, she becomes a construction worker. I had her roll. She got a 3. I guess that was construction worker. Yes. Okay, you want to come in here? Okay, well, come on in. Let me get you in here. Let me get my baby Shadow in here. Oh my god. Oh my god. Shadow?
Hello.
Shadow! Hi, how are you?
I am great.
Oh my gosh.
Just iron.
Can you tell us about so first of all, we're pretty much at the point where Scott has escaped from the orphanage. Do you remember this CV at all? It's so long ago.
Yes.
Oh, good, nice.
Yes. It's been a while. All I remember is I named my character Scott because I had just finished a Scott Pilgrim book. That's all I remembered, and I was like,
that's hilarious.
I was like, I like the name Scott.
That is hilarious. Oh, this is like one of my. I still love. I mean, Lee is still my favorite of your characters, but I did love what you did with Scott because I thought this was like. I don't know. This was really good. Did you? How did you feel about Scott like being the rich sibling? Well, starting out.
At first, I said, "Wow, this is gonna be funny," because I thought, because you know, like that one part, like towards like the end of like that like era, basically of like
Hmm.
the and within it, it's like, oh, it's like Alice walks into a jewelry store, and then like it's just some random dude. It's not.
Oh yes, I did a little bait and switch with you guys. Did a little
Yeah,
bait and switch.
I was like, dang, I wonder how this is gonna go.
So yes, so Scott becomes a successful jewelry salesman. I was telling them I was like I had other more interesting jobs for Scott, but you rolled a 8 and I guess that was jewelry salesman. I was like, okay. I think like one of them was like recording artist. There was like a bunch of others like actors, a bunch of others, but jewelry salesman is what you got. So there we go.
I got what I got.
You got what you got. And then we get to a probably one of the saddest moments in the entire CV12. So Alice is a poor construction worker. She has a child. We never find out anything about the baby daddy, but yeah. So I have her walk into a jewelry shop, and I do a little bait and switch. It's not the jewelry shop that Scott works in, sadly. And eventually we get to yeah, she gets a call late at night that her babysitter has left because she got called into work. She works overnight, but the babysitter can't make it, and so Alice has to bring her child to work, which is really really sad that she had to do that. So oh yeah, so while this is also happening, Scott gets a proposition to do. What happens to Scott? Hang on.
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure this is like that one time where I just vanished for like a week because I didn't know what was happening. Because like all of a sudden, I just started focusing on Alice, the Alice story, and I was like, I don't want to bother this. I don't want to add extra information and like confuse fire.
You were good. It was oh, that's what it was. So oh, this is how it was all connected. That's right. So remember someone came into Scott's store. It was the same guy who was from the orphanage who like got Scott out. He's a real troublemaker, that
Oh,
one.
that. Oh, that. Yeah, I
So
remember. I
so he
remember.
was like I got a score, I got some mob stuff. I'm not asking any questions. He wants to take out a rival construction company, which is Alice's construction company. So basically, what they're gonna blow up the building that Alice is going to go to work in, so they can get rich, which is a old scheme, which probably wouldn't work today, but you know, some old 1930s shit. And Scott says no, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not for that anymore. He's like, I'm successful. And he's like, it'd be stupid for me to do that.
I was shocked you. I was shocked you said no. I was like, I thought he would. I thought you would have Scott say yes, but I was like, it worked either way. But I was like, oh my gosh.
No, because I was thinking, it's like, what would he? What was? I was like, what would this guy who's like his whole life got ruined, then it just came up. Would he like try to? Would he risk it again?
Oof, so good. Because I had another scenario where Scott and Alice actually meet up uh, at the like construction site, which would have been really interesting. But I think it worked out well. I like this. I like this version. So Shadow disappeared for a week. So then so then Alice
That
Alice
usually happens.
that happens, it happens. So Scott says no to this guy, and Alice goes to work. And as she's going to work, she realizes it's a sort of a shell of a construction building, and this guy essentially is going to light it on fire. And oh yeah, Alice's baby's name is Ivy. Poor little Ivy. And so she takes Ivy to work. Yeah, so there's this guy who so she goes into the construction site. I forgot why. Oh yeah, because there's a figure, and she has to go tell the figure like, "Hey, can you not be here? You're not supposed to be here." And he blocks her path and lights the building on fire. And so Alice now has to find a way out. and it's complete darkness, and she can't really see very well.
I
So,
will be honest. I never knew any of this happening. This is the first time I'm hearing of this. This is what
ooh,
I mean by I vanished for a week.
ooh, good. Okay, well, it's gonna get very sad.
No,
Um,
because I stop. I don't see the CVs for like 2 minutes, and there's like a
yeah,
lot, and it's
this got
confusing
crunk.
to like find the right spot, and I just don't read it.
This one got very crunk. So Alice basically has to escape the construction site with Ivy attached to her, and there are a couple points where oh my god, she drops Alice a couple times out of her arms, which is horrifying, because Alice is not a
You mean
newborn.
Ivy?
I mean Ivy,
Ivy
Jesus, Ivy, thank you, Ivy.
dropping herself.
Who among us hasn't dropped ourselves? So Ivy drops out of the. She drops Ivy a couple times. Eventually, she gets to a certain floor on the stairs. I don't know of the building, and the figure who is the old guy from the orphanage tries to stop her from getting out because if she gets out, then he gets caught. So they fight, and eventually the figure rushes to escape the flames behind Alice. Alice thinks about jumping out to landing to a more safe environment. And let me see what happens. The flame approaches closer. Alice aims. Oh yeah. So she tries to dive out, clutching Ivy as the figure misses grabbing her. So yeah, she's fighting this figure and also trying to jump out of the building and also trying to escape the flames. And the flames engulf the second floor. So she gets out of the second floor but can't find the figure. So she doesn't see if the figure gets out or not, this person who tried to kill her. And then as she gets out, she finally jumps. She jumps into and she lands on, I believe, a car. I believe like she like lands on, it's horrifying. She lands in a car, and this is really horrible. She realizes based on her role that where she landed was directly on top of Ivy. So it was car, Ivy, mom. So Ivy is unresponsive, and we find out later that Ivy has died. And so the paramedics rush around and try to get Alice on the gurney and all that stuff. And we find out that Ivy has passed away on the way to the hospital, which is very, very sad. I think that's probably the saddest death of the CV. Jesus, very, very sad. Infant death. So eventually we get back to Scott, and we see. Let me see. Is this the time change when they've switched out? Oh yeah, no, not yet, not yet. So life for Alice sucks because her child died. They tell Alice that she baby was couldn't be resuscitated. And Scott, let me see what happens. Scott, like, because they're sort of twins, I think it's that Scott like also felt really sad. Yeah, Scott begins to feel a sharp pain in his heart. It feels like a loss, and Scott keeps crying. Yeah, so it's this twin sort of stigmata kind of thing. And he sees her on
I
the.
was confused when that first happened. I was like, wait, why Scott sad?
Yeah, it was supposed to be that they're tied, so whatever like deep pain Alice feels, Scott feels too. And then Alice gets interrogated, and they never got a name, so they find out that someone has tried to burn down the building, but of course she never figured out who it was, so she had to recount the whole story, and it's really sad. And then we get to another year later where Alice has a trial. She's now accused of burning down the building. So not only does she have to deal with the death of her child, but she also has to be accused of an arson. So eventually, they test her DNA, and I had the jury roll for guilty or not guilty, which that was fun. So Alice's there's a parallel universe where in which Alice goes to jail, which would have been interesting. So Alice is found not guilty on murder or arson, I believe, and eventually she comes out, and everyone, the court reporters are like, "Oh, how does it feel? How you got your freedom back?" And then we do another time change, and it's 20.
Scott was there. Scott was at the trial. Scott was at the trial.
Oh, Scott was at the
I remember
trial.
that.
Yes, that's right. Scott was at the trial. Thank you, Shadow. Thank you. Scott with the that's right. He was at the trial. So they keep sort of
I would
missing
like
each
to
other.
apologize, Fire, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna lose. The one person recounting what happened, because I must be on my way
Bye,
as
Shadow.
usual.
Thanks for coming through. I
Doing the
appreciate
classic Shadow
it.
thing. I'll pop in if I can later.
Yay! Thank you, Shadow. So now, and 20 years later, we have Scott, who's now 46, and they have switched places. So Scott is now very broke. His business foreclosed, and he is actually now a beggar. He's homeless, and he is begging on the street. And as he's walking around, he sees a billboard with a familiar face, and it is Alice, who is now wildly successful for her latest book, which is going to be it's like a fantasy book that's very Tim Burton-esque, is what Felix ended up saying. And we come in on Alice. She has a TV spot talking about her latest book, and it getting movie optioned and all that stuff, and it's really cool. And eventually she finally does run into Scott, I believe. Oh yeah, that's right. He comes to her book signing. So she has a book signing, and he comes to the book signing, and he reveals it's Scott, and she goes, "Oh, hello." And she goes, "Hey, listen, like, I'll come back. Just stand over here. I'm going to finish the book signing, then we'll chat." And they haven't seen each other in like 30 years at that point. So he stands over, and Alice's agent basically talks to Scott and sort of says like, "Hey, how's it going? What are you doing? What are you up to? Do you need money?" And eventually tricks him into going out the back door and being locked out. So essentially the agent was protecting Alice in making sure that her brother doesn't like ruin her career. So Scott takes this as a personal slight, thinking that Alice like gave her the order to do that. And then eventually, so Scott is mad at Alice again, and what happens after that? Yeah, so Scott leaves because he sort of feels rejected, and now we go once again to another time jump. Alice is now 7 years old. She never sees where Scott went after that day. She hasn't heard from Scott since that day. She's now doing a tour for her 7th best-selling book. I had Felix roll for that. It's the 7th best-selling book. So she's on the TV spot talking about her incredible career and legacy. She also reveals that she is dying of bone marrow cancer. So, and she's looking at having a transplant or replacement. And of course, she needs someone with the exact DNA. And of course, who else could that be but her twin brother? So, it says she has a tumor in her bone marrow, and eventually, she tells her agent to track down where her brother is, and the agent reveals that it was her that day that made sure that the brother had to leave and whatever. And so they track her down. They find out that Scott is living somewhere in the woods, being a man in the woods somewhere. And so the agent drives them. They drive all the way out to find Scott. And the interesting thing about Scott that people didn't really talk about was that his face is disfigured. And he sort of has a sort of warped sort of Junji Ito kind of thing going with his body, but he's obscured it with, hoods and masks and whatnot. So essentially, Alice asks that Scott come and help her out with the transfer, so that she can, survive. And Scott says no, feeling, the pain of feeling abandoned by Alice, which is interesting because he abandoned Alice first, but whatever. And it's really sad because Alice has to leave, with Scott not caring about her. So Scott eventually is like, "I don't care if you die," and Alice is like, "All right, that's fine. Let's go." And she tries not to cry, and Alice dies in the hospital. It's so sad. I love this story. It's so sad. So Alice dies in the hospital, and as she dies, Scott's body disintegrates. And the reason for this, we do a little flashback back to the first one, to the very first beginning, the beginning of this story, where their mother is looking at the two kids, and the woman lays in the birthing chair as the doctor uses the ultrasound machine. And he says, "All right, looks like one healthy baby." The doctor then notices a strange glowing nebulous on the screen. It seems like the fetus is holding it. The doctor swallows and takes the machine off her stomach. And he says, "Do you want to know the sex?" And the woman nods and says, "It's a girl." And so it was very clear that if you know the cryptid U, Scott was actually a U baby, if that makes sense. So somehow in the womb, Alice had created a cryptid within her that would be her twin. And so the reason why Scott's face is disfigured is that in order for the twin to exist, it has to remain close and in contact emotionally, physically, to its host, its soul person. And Alice basically had to get away from him, and so he became disfigured, and that's how he died. So they all died. Everyone died. It's a very sad TV. It feels like 10 dreams in one. So it's very sad. Okay, so now we're at the seventh one. I'm going to take a quick break because we're at 2 hours and 16 minutes. But yeah, I will be back to recount more in let's say back in 15, 20, because I want to get some food for a second. Play us a little song. I'm just going to stop recording right here. This is the end of part 1. Ew.